guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to this week's weekly check-in. So I did get a little bit of reading done last week. Mostly I was focusing on this big old boy, but I will get to it in just a second. The first thing that I want to talk about that I ended up finishing was The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. This is, of course, the second book in the Bridgerton series, and I wanted to get it done before Bridgerton Season 2 came out. More on that in a minute, because I have thoughts. But yeah, so The Viscount Who Loved Me is book 2. It is about Anthony and Kate Sheffield. In the book, those are their names. I read it all audibly, I'm pretty sure. I ended up getting the audiobook for it and just like listening to that while I was at work last night, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite love the audiobook narrator, but in the end, like, the story was enjoyable, so it didn't bother me that much, and I ended up loving this. I think I gave it 4 stars, if not the full 5. I think I had a couple of issues with it, so it was actually 4. But I loved it. I love coming back to the Bridgerton world. I have been reading these books since I was a teenager, and I just love coming back to them and meeting these characters again. I haven't read them in probably a decade at this point, so while I remember bits and pieces of it, I definitely don't remember specific plot lines, which is why I wanted to go back and reread the series, or at least reread the book before the season came out. And book 2 was great. I really enjoyed it. Season 2 of Bridgerton was also great. I don't want to say that I like hated it or anything, but in comparing it to the book, there are some things that I liked more and some things that I didn't like more, and I think that I'm gonna do a specific video talking about that, because I have a lot of thoughts, and it would take up this whole check-in if I went into it here. So more on that later. The next book that I started last week was League of Liars by Astrid Schultz. I had an arc of this from NetGalley, and it ended up being a DNF for me. The concept was interesting. It was a YA fantasy novel in which the use of this magic called Edom is outlawed. And Edom is a time warping kind of magic. It can affect the events, it can affect the flow of time, and if you use it, you're left with these shadows wherever it touched you, and that kind of tells the authorities that you ended up using it. I think that they can sense it somehow, I guess. Maybe? And if you do end up using it, you end up being sent to jail. Or if you are a minor, you end up getting sent to Valdine, which is like a school, like a reform school for people that have used Edom. I thought that the concept was super cool, but once again, I fell prey to the, if you like Six of Crows, you'll like this kind of a thing. And my issue there was I really didn't get any Six of Crows vibes. I had gotten maybe 30% of the way in, maybe a little bit under that. I was definitely over 20. And there were a couple of different perspectives that you were following. The first one was a boy named Cater, who is an apprentice to a defense attorney, and the defense attorney is like specializing in Edom crimes. And you could tell there were definitely some like parallels a little bit to like drug use and that kind of thing in our world, and like the feelings of the defense attorneys as it relates to that. Cater was an apprentice to this defense attorney because he wanted to get more perspectives before he went into law school to become a prosecutor against these kinds of crimes. His dad is a judge, and he's not a very good dad. Cater was boring. That was my main issue. He was about as much of a Gary Stu main character as you could find. In the 20+% that I read, he had nothing, he didn't do anything. He didn't really have any personality that stuck out to me that I cared about it anyway. The second point of view that you follow is a kid named Jay, and Jay, like, the first scene that you follow him in that I was actually really interested in was him like stealing something because he was trying to live on the run, and then you find out that he gets arrested for something, and so he is thrown into this prison, and Cater and the attorney that Cater works for end up being his defense attorneys. I don't know, that's as far as I got, and everything about it sounds like it would be right up my alley, which is why I requested it on NetGalley. But the problem is I didn't care. The writing felt a little bit clunky to me at times, and the magic system, I didn't explain this yet, but the Edom is shadow-based, and so anywhere that there is a shadow, apparently, there is Edom. And my issue with this is, and maybe they explain this further if I would have read on, so, I can't really say that this is a fault of the book, but it is the thing that was bothering me the most as of this point. This particular city is the only place in which Edom occurs, and so they've, like, I don't know, biodomed it off or something from, like, the rest of the world so that it doesn't infect other places. And so it's in, like, a permanent, not sunny state like, I don't know, overcast, I guess you would say. And they do this to stop Edom from happening, like stop people having access to Edom. But my issue is you literally can't stop shadows. Like, there's always going to be a shadow. If you're in a house, there's going to be a shadow because there is a light source. Then there is something blocking the light source, and that is what a shadow comes from, you know? So, like, I don't know. They might address it later on. They didn't address it as far as I got. That was like a big glaring issue for me. While it sounded really, really cool and I wanted to see what the author was going to do with it, it just ended up not being for me. I just decided to DNF and not, like, waste my time on something that really wasn't pulling me in any further. So that's what happened with that one, which makes me very sad. I was really looking forward to it. The other arc that I started reading was A Forgery of Roses by, I believe it's Jessica Olsen is the name of the author. This cover is beautiful, by the way. I am not very far into it at all. I think I'm maybe 10% of the way into this one, and I am enjoying it. It's reading a little bit young for me. League of Liars was reading super young for me as well. They are both YA, but they were reading on the younger side of YA, and I just wasn't connecting to it. A Forgery of Roses, I am giving it more of a chance. I'm a little bit more interested in it, and this is also a YA fantasy. In this one, the magic system revolves around art. So everybody worships this god called the Artist, so it's definitely an art-centric storyline. And there are certain people called prodigies who have the ability to use art to affect, I think, just living things around them. So, like, they can change the appearance or things like that of living things just by painting them and then imbuing it with their magic. They can, like, heal cuts and scrapes and things like that in this way, but it is, I don't know if it's outlawed, but it's definitely frowned upon. And so this main character, whose name is escaping me right now, she is a prodigy and she's terrified of it. Her magic is growing stronger, she's losing control over it, and she works in this artist, like, portrait painting type shop where her mother helped to found it, and her mother disappeared a long time ago, and so it's just her mother's old partner running it. And one day, the governor, who is very anti-prodigy, anti this magic, walks in, like, the governor's wife walks in and wants a portrait painted of her dog, and the main character starts to panic because she's the one who has to do this portrait, and she's terrified that her magic is going to leak out, and blah, 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 blah. That's as far as I've gotten. I'm interested. It's very art heavy, and I am not an artist, so they're saying a lot of terms that I'm certain that somebody that's familiar with them will, like, love those references. They just don't personally mean anything to me, so I'm kind of learning along as I go. I'm interested. I can't say that I'm adoring the story so far, but I am, you know, I am intrigued to see where it's going to go, and the cover is gorgeous, which is a large part of the reason why I asked for it. But the magic system is pretty cool too. So you don't really see any fantasy magic systems specifically where the entirety of it revolves around this. So I'd like to see where it goes, and I will keep you guys updated on where I land on that. Okay, I am still in the middle of The Hunger of the Gods. I am 364 pages into it. I hope to get a little bit more reading done tonight. I do have an e-arc of this as well, so I'm kind of switching back and forth between the two, which is speeding up the process a little bit for me, and I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying a lot more now, especially that we're really starting to get into characters coming together. I don't really want to say who, and I don't really want to say how, because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But if you've been on my channel for a while, Words of Radiance is my favorite Stormlight Archive book, because all of the different viewpoints that we saw in The Way of Kings started to come together in Words of Radiance. And I love that. I love when things are, like, disjointed and you're learning about people from different places and, like, that have never met each other, and they start to join forces, or create alliances, I guess you could say, and that is starting to happen now. I am almost 60% of the way into this, so seeing these opposing viewpoints kind of coming together and figuring out how to work together is really interesting for me. There are some characters that I really, really hate. Like, I shouldn't hate Elvar because, like, her prejudices are ingrained into her, and she's not a terrible person, but she is refusing to change. But I don't really know how much I can say without spoiling it. If you read the first book, Elvar is one of the people in this world that believes that the tainted should be enslaved. They should be held as thralls, they should have collars on their throats because the descendant of the gods are dirty, and blah 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 blah, they need to be controlled. And she has not changed that viewpoint into this book, but she is talking to people about different viewpoints, so I think that that could be where we are going, but she hasn't yet, and that really irritates me because her entire mentality, it just pisses me off. But you have a whole bunch of other different points of view that are better So, I think I'm holding strong in my opinion from The Shadow of the Gods that Elvar is my least favorite point of view. Now, Hunger of the Gods does introduce a couple of new points of view that I won't say who they are because I don't want to spoil anything that happened in the first book. But in addition to Orca and Varg and Elvar, you now get I think just two other points of view. And I don't love them as much. We'll see where they go. I am interested as to why one of them is relevant at all, because he was a side character in the first book. He was fairly irrelevant. I mean, he had a couple of things that happened around him, but in terms of the greater story, he doesn't really have any importance. So I would be interested to see where his storyline is going to go, purely because there has to be a reason that John Gwynne is making him a focal point of this story. So that's my thoughts on this so far. I am really, really enjoying it. John Gwynne, for me, is not a writer whose books I can just fly through. I just have to, like, sink into it and appreciate it and, like, take my time with them, because while I am a visual reader, I don't necessarily have a great time, like, with battle scenes. I don't know why that is, but, like, the more battling there is, the slower I have to take it, because, like, I need character interactions, I guess. Is that a weird viewpoint? I prefer the character interactions over the action, so that's where I'm at on this. And the character interactions are happening a lot more in this book, so I'm really, really enjoying that aspect of it. And in keeping with that theme, I am also reading Ruin by John Gwynne. So I'm reading two John Gwynnes at the same time, in different mediums though, because Ruin I'm reading mostly audibly. I have the Audible book for it, so I'm listening to it mostly while I'm at work. I haven't really picked it up while I've been at home. So again, that's very slow going. I don't think I'm very far into it at all, maybe like 10-15%. I am enjoying it, and I think that I will probably be working on picking it up physically after I finish The Hunger of the Gods, because I need to move on to a different physical read, and that's perfect for me. But yeah, those are the books that I was reading all of last week. I also watched Bridgerton Season 2, so like I said, I think I'm gonna make a separate video about that specifically, and get all my thoughts out in a little bit longer of a video than I wanted to dedicate to it in this particular video. So, yeah, that's it for my weekly check-in, guys. How was your reading this week? Did you read anything that you fell in love with? Did you DNF anything like I ended up doing? Or was it just kind of eh? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to talk to you guys about everything that you have been reading. Don't forget that the live show that I'm doing with Lauren and Z is going to be this Sunday. It's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern. We're going to put all of the other times in there too, because we cross many time zones for the three of us, so we'll have to put all of that down and let you guys know what it is in all of the different time zones. But it is going to be 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, and we're going to talk about all of our thoughts on Pawn of Prophecy, the first book in the Belgariad, so don't miss that. And that is it for me today, guys. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see any more content from me. And down in my description box, you're going to see rep codes for Hello Lovely Box, my links to my Goodreads, my Twitter, and my Instagram, in case you guys wanted to follow me on any of those. That's it for me today, guys, so I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!